Hi everyone, thank you so much for stopping by Rainy Day Crochet. Today in this video I'm going to be going over how to double crochet for beginners. If you aren't already familiar with how to crochet, please be sure to check out my video for how to crochet for beginners. In that video I go over the basics of crochet as well as how to single crochet, so please be sure to check that out. With that, let's get started. Before we dive in how to double crochet, let's make sure that we have all of the supplies that we're going to need. The first thing you're going to need is some yarn. For this video, I chose Paint Box Yarn's Simply Aran yarn. I really like this yarn, especially if you're a beginner, because it's a really nice thickness to work with. If you don't choose this size of yarn, I would also recommend a chunky yarn or possibly a worsted weight yarn. They both work really well if you're new. It's very easy to see your stitches, so I'd recommend that. You'll also need a pair of scissors. So I have some very small ones here. If you don't already have a pair of scissors, I would recommend buying a smaller pair. They're just easier to work with and get in really nice and close to your work. You will also need a crochet hook. I am using a 5mm, which is what this yarn requires. Be sure to look at the label of the yarn that you'll be working with because it will tell you what size of hook to use, and I would recommend using that size of hook because it will ensure that your work will turn out the correct size. And then the last thing we'll need is a darning needle. We're going to use this to stitch in all of our loose ends at the end of the video. Once we have all of our supplies, we can go ahead and get started on our chain row. Now, the chain row is what we're going to be working our first row of double crochet stitches into. And to actually start the chain row, you need to make a slip knot. So I will go ahead and show you how to do that. And there's actually a few different ways you can do it. I'll just show you what I think is the quickest way to do it. You can wrap it around your thumb one time. We're going to make sure that the tail end is down this way. We'll wrap that around and create a loop over our thumb, and then we're going to bring a little more yarn back behind that, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and lift this front loop back over that back loop. And then we'll just kind of pin that down and then grab that back loop and pull it through. And that is how you get a slip knot. So pretty easy. And once you get the hang of it, you can actually do it pretty quickly. And then we'll just slip that onto our hook like so. And then we can begin to work our chains. And for this project, I'm going to do 22 chains. For chaining, what you're going to do is you're going to bring your yarn over your hook like this. And then you're just going to pull it through your loop. So that is one chain. And we'll be doing 22. And things to think about while you're doing this is to make sure your tension isn't too tight. And then I'm also kind of bringing my finger up along as I go. And that helps to make sure that everything stays really stable near my hook. It'll get really wobbly if I don't do that. And also, if you're a beginner, how you hold your yarn is something that you'll want to try and figure out. You figure out what works for you. So I draw it over my ring finger. A lot of people do their pinky. For whatever reason, I learned ring finger, and then I draw it over the index finger. And then you just kind of, bring it through as you need it, like so. And then also making sure that your yarn isn't too tight, because that can really affect your tension. So you'll want to pull out a bunch of yarn, and that will help as well. I'm going to continue this chain row to 22, and I'll let you do the same, and I will meet back up with you there. Once you reach the end of your chain row, it should look a little something like this. The things to look for is that each of your chains are pretty equal in size. You don't want any that are obviously a lot larger or tighter. You also want to make sure that your chains are loose enough for you to work your double crochet stitches into. If you're finding that you're struggling to get them loose enough, one trick you can use is to use a hook that is one size larger. So in this case, I would use a 5.5 millimeter instead of a 5 millimeter. I find that this is extremely helpful if you're struggling with that, so that's what I would recommend. Once you have your chain row in place, we can go ahead and get started on how to double crochet. Now, things to keep in mind here, if you watched my video on how to single crochet, you'll remember that we skipped the first chain and then worked into the second one. With double crochet, we're going to be skipping 3 and then working into the 4th one. And you might be wondering, why not 2? 2 is actually usually used for half double crochet, so it's kind of in between single and double crochet. So typically you're going to skip 1 for single crochet, 2 for a half double crochet, 3 for double crochet, and 4 for treble crochet. Now, since we're doing double crochet, we will skip 3, and what that is going to look like, you see here that we have, actually I'm going to pull this out so I can lift it. You can see here that we have these chains, so they all look like V's. This is 1, 2, 3, and then we'll crochet into that 4th one, and we'll just crochet into this top loop right there. So we'll go ahead and insert our hook into there. Let's go ahead and reinsert it here. And then so skipping 1, 2, 3, and 4, but before we insert it, we want to yarn over our hook and then insert it. And then we're going to yarn over again and pull through a loop for 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2 for 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through 2. And we have our first double crochet. And we'll continue working the rest of the row like that. I'll go ahead and do another one with you. Go ahead and yarn over, and then before we actually stick this hook in, let's actually look at what we have here. Sorry. So here, this big open loop is where we just worked that double crochet, so we don't want to work in that. We don't want to go to this next loop. So you see that nice V shape. Go ahead and yarn over, insert, yarn over, and pull through for 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We're left with 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And we'll just continue to the end, and I will meet back up with you when we get to the end. Once you reach the end of your row, I just want to show you real quickly how to do the last stitch. I know as a beginner, for myself, I found the end of rows really confusing because I wasn't always sure if I was actually at the end or not. I just wanted to be sure to point that out to you. What we have here is our last chain space right here. So it's one little V. You can kind of see there's a little bit hanging over here. You can also see the slip knot that we created right here. That's also a good indicator you're at the end. So those are just things to kind of keep in mind. Let's go ahead and do that last stitch in the end. And that is what your first row of double crochet should look like. Okay, now that we're done with our first row, we can turn our work and start on the second row. The first thing we're going to need to do to turn our work is to chain 3. And this is very much like the 3 chains that we skipped in our chain row. It's what allows us to turn our work. Once you get your 3 chains, we'll go ahead and flip the work. And if you're familiar with single crochet, you'll remember that we did our first single crochet into the top of the first single crochet of the last row here. We're not going to do that with double crochet. We're actually going to skip that and work into the next double crochet. And what that looks like is we have our 3 chains here. We have the first double crochet, and you can see that kind of V on top. And we'll be skipping that and working into this second double crochet. And again, we're going to want to work under both of those loops. So just kind of look for that V shape. And we'll just do a double crochet like we did in the previous row. So a yarn over and insert, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. And we will continue the rest of the row like that. I will meet back up with you when you get to about this last stitch here to explain how it works. Now that we're at the end of the row, let's take a look at what we have here. If we look at the previous row, we see that we have a double crochet here, and then this is the turning chain. That's those 3 chain stitches that we skipped. Now, compared to single crochet, we did not single crochet into the top of the that chain 1 that we skipped. We just left it alone. But with a double crochet, we are going to double crochet into the top of that. Now, that's how you typically do it, of course. If you're following a pattern, just look at what they say to do because it could be different, but typically you're going to want to crochet into that. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll double crochet into the top of the double crochet, and then this can get a little tricky because it doesn't look like a normal stitch. And you're going to want to look for the top of it and crochet into that. So it's kind of like, it's right here. There's a bit of a hole that you can crochet into. That's one of those chains. If you look here, you can see 3, 1, 2, 3. So we'll double crochet into the top of that. And that is how you double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and continue for, say, about 10 more rows. That'll give me kind of a nice square shape. If you were just doing this for practice, you don't have to continue on. I'm going to just finish this video up by showing you how to finish off your work. And that's where I will meet up with you again. I went ahead and did 8 more rows of double crochet for a total of 10 rows of double crochet, and it looks a little something like this. And the last thing we're going to need to do is to trim our ends. What we're going to want to do is cut off this end. I like to do about this much. Go ahead and cut that. And then we can use our hook to pull it through. We'll go ahead and put our end through our needle. And the way I like to do this is I like to bring the yarn down. Well, I basically go over this top loop of the double crochet and then go through this one below it. And that kind of brings me down to the bottoms of the double crochets, which I like to bring my yarn through. So go ahead and pull our needle through. And this is what it looks like from the other side. So I'm going right through the middle of those stitches. And I like to do a couple of inches. And pull that, and then pull on it a little bit. Make sure it's not too bunched up. We'll go back the way that we came. And I like to, I either skip over this loop and then begin stitching under, or I'll actually go right through the middle of it and split it. Either way works. And then we'll just pull back through the other way to the end and pull our yarn through. And again, kind of give it a tug, make sure it's not pulling too tight. Make sure it looks okay, and we'll go ahead and trim off the rest. And I'll go ahead and let you do the other end, and that'll be it. Once your ends are all sewn in, your finished project should look a little something like this. And now that you know how to double crochet, I'd say it's time to move on to learning how to treble crochet. I'm planning to make a video for that soon, so be on the lookout for that. And thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really do hope that this video helped you. If it did help you, please like it and follow my channel, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.